Hi, welcome to this Blender video tutorial entitled Blender Materials Ramps. Blender provides an alternative method of creating and displaying diffuse and specular color by means of ramp controls. To demonstrate ramps, I've placed a smooth UV sphere into my Blender scene along with a ground plane. The UV sphere has a medium green material linked to it, and the ground plane has a black and white checkered texture linked to it. I'm using the default camera and the default lamp, but I've added a second hemi-lamp with a very low energy to fill in some of the shadows. I've also split my 3D viewports so that the rendering will appear in the right window. I'll select the green sphere and go to the Materials Editor. Notice a ramp checkbox is located in both the diffuse and specular shading panels. I will check the ramp checkbox in the diffuse panel. This displays a set of ramp controls which will replace the diffuse color. The settings reveal a color band. I will left-click on the marker on the far left. This indicates that the color is black, with an alpha setting at 0, making it completely transparent. I'll click on the marker to the far right. This indicates that the color here is light cyan or a blue-green, with the alpha setting at 1, making it completely opaque. I will select the far left marker and set the color to red, and set the alpha to 1, making it opaque. I'll select the far right marker and set the color to blue, leaving the alpha set to 1. Now we have a color band which ranges from blue on the right to red on the left. The interpolation is set to linear, so the colors blend from blue to red. The input for the diffuse ramp is set by default to shader. This means that the color band ramp will remap the current shader color, with the lighter diffuse color being replaced by the blue on the right, and the darker shadowed diffuse color being replaced by the red on the left. I'll render the scene. Here you can see that the diffuse color is now a ramp going from the blue in the lighter area to the red in the shadow area. Blue dominates the diffuse color as it does in the color band. We can barely see the red color because with the ramp input set to shader, the shading effect is still operating. I'll click and drag the left marker toward the center so that it falls closer to the brighter areas of the diffuse shader, and then render the scene. Now you can see the red has a more pronounced effect on the diffuse color of the object. Since the ramp input is set to shader, the result is still dependent upon all of the diffuse shader settings. Only the colors are being remapped. Here I will change the diffuse shader to Toon and re-render. Note that the Toon shader coloring, which is green and black without the ramp, is remapped with the blue-red color band. I'll go back to the Lambert diffuse shader. Notice that the blend is set to mix. Since all of the color in the color band is opaque, the color band simply renders over the underlying green color. However, if I select the far right blue marker and lower its alpha to about 0.4 and re-render, we see that the underlying green is now being mixed with the color band blue to display a blue-green light and diffuse color. Another important feature of using a ramp with the input set to shader is that a ramp is produced for each light source. In my scene I have two lamps, this point lamp and this hemi lamp. I'll select the hemi lamp and in the Object Data Editor turn off its specular and diffuse influence. I'll then re-render the scene. Notice that the color ramp on the left side of the sphere is no longer displayed, and instead we have the darkened area produced by the single diffuse shader. I will reselect the sphere and go back to the Materials Editor. One last key to using a diffuse ramp with the input set to shader is that the remapping of the diffuse color to the ramp color band is not affected by the intensity of the light source. For instance, I'll select the point lamp and increase its energy to 3 and re-render the scene. Note that the scene gets brighter, but the color ramp mapping remains the same. There is another ramp input called energy, which will map the color band based on the lamp's energy as it is reflected through the diffuse shader. Now, because of the particular color band I've set up here, we'll see little difference when I render. Another ramp input is called normal. This maps the color band to the object's face normals in relationship to the camera image plane. I'll re-render using the normal ramp input. Here the right end of the color band is mapped to the object's faces that are perpendicular to the camera, and the left end of the color band is mapped to the faces that are parallel to the camera. The last input is called result. Here the diffuse mapping is based on the color ramp without any regard for diffuse shadowing. I'll lower the red color marker to the far left and I'll re-render this. Note that the object has no diffuse shadowing and uses the full color band as the diffuse color. So far we have used only a simple two-color gradient, blue on the right and red on the left. We can add additional color markers by either clicking on the Add button or simply Control left-clicking inside of the color band itself. I'll select the right color band and set its alpha to full, and I'll select the left color band and move it to the far left. Next I will add a color marker in the center of the color band by holding down my Control key and clicking in the center of the color band. The color swatch automatically takes on the color and the alpha setting for that position on the ramp. We can select a color marker by either left-clicking on it or using the position selector. To delete a marker, we select it and press the delete button. I will again add a center marker and I'll make it green. I will then switch the interpolation from linear to constant. I will then adjust the positioning of the sliders to the left to form 3 separate rings of color. I'll then render the scene using the ramp input set to shader. Here is the same tricolored ramp rendered using energy as the input. Here it is using normal as the input. And here it is using result as the input. Now, as you can see, ramps add another important set of controls to Blender Materials. When combined with the other material controls, they allow for a limitless number of surface treatments.